Hi guys, welcome back to Elizabeth Ann Reads. I'm just here to give you kind of a weekly reading update, what I've been reading, what I've been enjoying. Um, sorry if you can hear the noise in the background. The dog decided that now was the time to eat, apparently. It's been sitting there all day. Yeah. Anyway, so let's talk about what I've been reading. It's been 1 week since I ended my 61 books in 61 days challenge. I will link that playlist down below if you missed that. And so it's been kind of fun. I've decided to just completely mood read this month and pick up whatever I wanted. Some books will continue to be off that 61 books list. Some books will not. And I'll just pick up whatever I feel like, which has been kind of fun. I got a whole bunch of stuff on my Kindle from the library and I've just been picking up whatever I feel like. So that's been fun. We're actually going to start with what I'm currently reading because I'm in the middle of two kind of chunky things. The first is The Light of All That Falls by James Islington. I actually started this for my 61 books challenge. It's on my list, but so I'd started it but didn't finish it. It's about 800 pages. I'm about at the 300 page mark. This is the third book in an epic fantasy trilogy, so I won't give you a whole lot of information. But we follow primarily three main characters. They start in the first book, they start off in a magic school setting, but that very quickly, like within the first two chapters, that ends and they end up kind of going three separate ways, and then we continue to follow their stories throughout the three books. I'm enjoying the series. To be perfectly honest, it does feel a little bit like a Sanderson ripoff. Some of the terminology and the way they talk about magic feels like it's pulled straight from some of Sanderson's books. But that aside, it's still very enjoyable. It's not Sanderson, but it's still very enjoyable. And yeah, so I'm looking forward to continuing this one. It's kind of slow going just because I keep getting distracted with other things. But I'm going to try and prioritize this next week so I can finish it. The other chunky thing I'm reading is Anna Karenina. This is kind of a full month project. This is the first time I've read Anna Karenina. This is the first time I've actually read any Russian classic. I'm about 200 pages in, which is good. I'm right on track to finish it in a month. I was not expecting to find this book so very readable. Like, I'm not getting lost. I'm not getting bogged down. Granted, I'm only 200 pages in, and my edition actually has a list of characters at the beginning, which is also very helpful. But it's so readable. The chapters are pretty short. It doesn't take me long to get through them. So that's super helpful. But also, I'm just really loving the story. I, again, did not expect that. I expected to kind of have to push myself through it a little bit. But I'm tending to pick up this one more than this one. It's what I'm wanting to pick up. And I'm loving some of the characters and hating some of the characters. And there's this really fantastic scene between Anna and her husband. I'm kind of assuming you know the gist of the story of Anna Karenina. Maybe I shouldn't assume that. But we follow Anna, who is married, but decides to have an affair, basically. And I know her life kind of spirals after that. I'm not there yet, so I don't know exactly what happens. But there's this scene between her and her husband, kind of the first time he notices her flirtation with this other man. And he's so gentle. Like, he doesn't accuse her of anything or yell at her or get defensive. He just approaches her so gently. He says, "I wish to warn you that you may by indiscretion and carelessness give the world occasion to talk about you." And then she kind of plays stupid. She says, "I don't know what you're talking about." And it goes on for a while. And then he says, "I have not the right to inquire into all the details of your feelings, and in general, I'd consider it useless and even harmful to do so. By digging into our souls, we often dig up what might better have remained there unnoticed. Your feelings concern your own conscience, but it is my duty to you, to myself, and to God to point out to you your duties. Our lives are bound together not by men, but by God. there was just so much gentleness and so much, like, just a caution, like, this path is not going to be good. Don't be stupid, but this path will bring you pain, and I don't want pain for you. And I don't know. I really like her husband. He may turn out to be a total jerk. I don't know, but I just really love that scene, and I'm really, really enjoying this book. So aside from those 2 chunky books that I'm working on, I actually read 3 other books entirely and a short story, which is pretty good. Sorry, I'm looking down at my reading journal. I did pick up mostly really light, fluffy stuff because I was reading those 2 bigger things. But I read some good stuff. So let's talk about that. Let's start with the short story. So I actually read the original Little Mermaid by Hans Christian Andersen, which I have read before, but it's been many, many, many years. So I wanted to reread that. I'm sure you know the story of the Little Mermaid. She falls in love with this prince that she sees and, trades her voice for legs so she can be with the prince. The Disney movie actually is pretty accurate to the story until the ending. The ending's completely different. But, yeah, I have never been a fan of the Disney adaptation of The Little Mermaid. We all know she's naive and kind of foolish, and what teen girl isn't sometimes? Which is true. She is in this story too. It's a stupid thing to trade your whole life for a prince you saw and know nothing actually about. But I was so irritated with the prince in the story, who is like, he's such a man-child. She, gets legs, goes to the prince. Of course, she can't talk. And so he kind of adopts her to be his little pet, basically, like his constant companion. She's with him all the time. He tells her everything. She's basically a pet. And he tells her like that he's in love with this woman that saved his life one day, which is of course her, but she can't tell him that. But he doesn't know, like, he can't have her, so it'll never be. So he'll never marry because he can only love her. And then his parents want him to meet this princess because they want him to get married. And he basically says, it's impossible for me to love her because she is not this fantasy woman that he's created in his mind that saved his life. He said, if I had to choose someone, I would choose you, but alas, I can't, it cannot be. And then he kissed her lips, played with her hair, and folded her in his arms. It's such a classic, the girl thinking that he's gonna see in the end, and him just being totally oblivious and using her to meet his, to fulfill his needs of companionship and completely leading her on in the process. It just really, really irritated me. So, yeah, that's my reaction to The Little Mermaid. I do still enjoy the story. I think it's a good story. I think it's a story worth reading. But I had never really noticed how obnoxious the prince was until this time I read it. So that was that, Little Mermaid. Then I read a couple middle grade books. I read The Story Collector by Kristen O'Donnell Tubb. This is set in 1920s New York. We follow the children of the superintendent of the New York Public Library. So this man and his family live in the library. There's an apartment in the library for the superintendent. And so our main girl is Viviani. And she has grown up in the library, which is a fantastic setting. So it follows her and her brothers and a couple friends of hers as well. The setting is great. The story is not so great. The story is just kind of meh. There's really not much plot, honestly. And all the action happens in the last 30 pages. Sadly, I did give it 3 stars, but that's honestly mostly for the setting of the New York Public Library. in 1920s New York, which is fantastic. But the story itself was pretty mediocre and was probably only worth 2 stars. But yeah, there you go. This is what I read for the Buzzwordathon this month, which is a bookish word in the title, and I figured story would count for that. Then just this morning, I finished Greetings from Witness Protection by Jake Burt. This is another middle grade, and we follow Nikki, who is a 13-year-old girl in the foster care system. She has kind of a rough past, and she ends up getting placed with a family that's going into witness protection. The idea being that the people that are looking for this family are going to be looking for a family of 3, and so they're going to make them a family of 4. Okay, here's the thing. I think sometimes we go into middle grade with our adult, like, critical thinking skills. Not that we shouldn't have critical thinking skills, but like with our adult eyes. And we read a story like this, and my thoughts were, okay, I don't actually know anything about witness protection or the U.S. Marshals or the mob, but I'm reasonably certain none of them function the way is portrayed in this book. Did I have a fantastic time reading this story? Absolutely. Despite the fact that it's pretty unrealistic, I don't think it's an accurate representation of a 13-year-old girl that's been in foster care her whole life. But it was such a fun story. I would have loved this book as a 10-year-old. I would have absolutely loved it. I loved it as an adult. If you can turn off that like critical adult brain, I think you can love it too. It was really, really fun. A great adventure, a really good story of found family, actually. That's an element that definitely jumped out to me. Just the whole found family element. And yeah, I would really highly recommend this one. For those of you that do care or are going to give it to a younger reader, there is one instance the word damn it is used. It's used by an adult, not a child, but that is in there, I think, just once, if you want to know that. But in general, I thought this was a really good, really fun, kind of a different, I don't think I've ever read anything set in witness protection before, and it was fun. I really, really enjoyed it. And then the last thing I'm going to talk about is The Littlest Library by Poppy Alexander. This was an e-arc that I had from NetGalley. I don't think it's actually out yet. I meant to look up the date, and I'll put it somewhere on the screen because I forgot to look it up. But I think it comes out either later this month or next month. And this is a romance. It's just a very light, fluffy, but charming romance set in England. We follow our main character, whose name I can't remember. But she's a librarian, and she loses her job because the evils of the digital age and librarians aren't valued anymore. And she ends up kind of uprooting her life, and she moves. And it's a pretty standard romance. I mean, it's exactly what you'd expect it to be. She finds this cute little cottage that she fixes up. It has an old, like one of those red phone boxes on the property that she turns into a little free library. And of course, brings the community together and makes friends, and, there's the hot neighbor next door. It's very standard, but it was very, very charming. I really enjoyed the setting. It's very clean. There's no, it's not even closed door. There's, nothing happens other than a couple kisses within the pages of the book. So, yeah, if you're looking for a good, kind of fluffy, clean romance, I would definitely recommend that one. So that's actually a super good reading week for me, honestly. I didn't think I read much until I sat down and started to figure out what I'd actually read this week to tell you about. And I'm pretty pleased that I read 3 entire books and a short story, aside from the 2 big things I was working on. So, go me. Next week will probably be not as good of a reading week. I'm busy. I picked up several extra shifts at work next week. For those of you that don't know, I currently work at an Amazon warehouse. And next week is Prime Week. So if you use Amazon a lot, you're probably well aware of that Prime Day is Monday. So basically all week we're anticipating a much higher volume than usual. So I picked up a bunch of extra shifts because they give us free stuff and I make more money. So I don't anticipate getting as much reading in next week, so I really want to try and focus on The Light of All That Falls and get that done. But we'll see what else I'll get to. and I will, of course, let you know hopefully next week when I check in. That is it. Thank you for watching.